Here's another one. So here's an office. All right, I'm going to let you look at it for a little bit. And so just kind of observe the things in the office. Look around, look at the image, see what you can see. And so in this study, they left them in there for about 35 seconds. And then they asked them to write down as many items as you can remember. And you can do that if you want or not, but and we'll go back to the picture in a minute. But so this is what they were able to remember. So did you remember that there was a chair? Did you remember there was a desk? Did you see a skull? You might not have seen the skull. Did you see a wine bottle? Coffee pot? Wine basket? So you see some of the things in here, the wine bottle, the coffee pot, the wine basket. Books you might have expected to see, but these things you didn't expect to see, you probably weren't going to put down. And I'll put you back just into the picture there. If you see the wine basket, the picnic basket at the top's a wine basket. You can see a skull over here on the bookshelf. There's a coffee pot. I see the wine bottle up there. And so the point was that in an office, you expect to see things that are typical to an office. And if you don't see those things in there, you're not very likely to remember them. And what was more important is they remembered seeing things that weren't in there. Paper, or paper on the desk, or a calendar that you might see. There's a calendar over there, or maybe there's a calendar. But they remembered things that were not in the office because they were activating schema. And so schema can sometimes interfere with our perception. So that was Brewers and Treyens. And so this is the study we're looking at. It's 1981. And so they asked them to wait in the office for 35 seconds. And then they were taken to another room and asked to recall everything. And they remembered things that were consistent with an office schema. But they didn't remember things that were inconsistent with an office schema. Okay, and so if you need to pause it, you can. I'm going to move on though. So, again, schemas are used to organize our knowledge. They help us to assist and recall. They actually guide our behavior because we act according to the patterns we're used to. And so if things happen in a particular way, we like things that are predictable. If I go to school, the bell's going to ring at a certain time. I'm going to sit in a certain seat in the class. Someone's going to be here. The teacher's going to get up in front of the room. If something differs from that, it kind of throws us off a bit, and it makes things uncomfortable. And that's schema. And they help us make sense. All right. So remember that they're cognitive structures that are derived from our prior experience and knowledge. So we build these schemas through a lifetime of experiences. It starts out when we're children. And so you think about you probably don't remember the first time you saw a dog or recognized it as a dog. But as we see a dog, we start to incorporate other types of dogs into that schema. And then when we see a cat, we know it's not a dog. It's different from a dog. And so we start to build a schema. We create another schema for that. And we start to put in things for a cat. And we differentiate between a cat and a dog. And so we build those up through our lifetime. Schemas are culturally specific. But they can still vary within a culture. So, we, in a particular culture, we expect to see certain things. We expect certain norms. When we talk about social schemas, for example, if you're in the Middle East, if a woman not wearing some sort of head covering, or even in some countries, a burqa is out of place. And so that throws off our schema. Living in a desert region versus living in a tropical region, we have different sort of context for what we expect to see. And those things, anything differing from that, we might either not notice or it might throw us off quite a bit. But again, even in a culture, my upbringing is not going to be the same as your upbringing, even if we've grown up in the relatively same culture. So there's two processes that we talked about, and I was referring to that with the cat and the dog. One is assimilation. And so now that I have this idea of the dog, I look at everything in terms of that dog, and I interpret other animals in terms of that dog. Does it look like the dog? No, it's a lot bigger. It's got, like a strip of hair on the back of its neck, and it's long, and it's got a different kind of mouth, and so that's a horse. All right, and so now I've got a new schema. Now, or that is a dog. It's a little bigger. It's got longer legs, but it's got a very similar mouth. So that's a Great Dane instead of a Chihuahua. So that's kind of thing. Now, accommodation is when I have to sort of develop new schemas, and that would be the idea of the cat or the horse. Okay, so it doesn't fit into that, so I have to kind of drive it to develop something that's different. Okay, so I can store it in long-term memory. And then I start building off of that one.